Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another random review. And today's random review is of The Ruling Class, or in the Spanish DVD, La Clase Dirigente, from 1972, directed by Peter Medak. The film desperately needs a Blu-ray, I feel. It is available in Criterion DVD. Peter Medak is quite an interesting director with an interesting career. Born in Budapest in 1937. He's still working. He's actually got a couple of projects that are due for release, and he recently made the documentary The Ghost of Peter Sellers in 2018. He has directed a few rather eclectic films, and he's done a hell of a lot of TV work, including episodes of pretty much most of your favourite shows. For example, he's directed episodes of Hannibal, Breaking Bad, House MD, The Wire. He directed 6 episodes of Homicide: Life in the Street. He did Tales from the Crypt. He directed episodes of The Twilight Zone, Michael Mann's Crime Story, St. Elsewhere, Magnum PI. So pretty much he's done a lot of television and a lot of really good television programs. And his films are somewhat of a mixed bag. He did Species 2. He also directed Romeo is Bleeding, Let Him Have It, the nice little film with Christopher Eccleston about not the last hanging in Britain, but certainly a very famous hanging in Britain of a young man. He did The Craze in 1990, and he also did The Changeling with George C. Scott, which is a lovely little creepy film. So he also did The Ruling Class, which is one of those films from the 70s that is literally barking. It's written by Peter Barnes, who wrote a play, because bizarrely, doing a little bit of research for this video, James McAvoy has recently performed in the play The Ruling Class a few years ago, which really threw me, because who would you rather have, James McAvoy or Peter O'Toole? So this film stars Peter O'Toole in the lead role as the 14th Earl of Gurney. The film starts with Harry Andrews, the 13th Earl of Gurney, giving a speech in the House of Lords about how terrible the world's become. There's no discipline, there's no public hangings or floggings anymore, and it's terrible, the world is going to rack and ruin. Cut back to his home in this lovely big country house. Arthur Lowe, of Dad's Army fame and many other things, is his long-suffering butler. And Harry Andrews retires for the evening and puts on a ballet dress or a ballet skirt, and auto-eroticizes himself. Yep, it was made in the 70s. If you want to see Harry Andrews auto-eroticizing himself wearing a tutu, then this is the film for you. Unfortunately, his pleasurable hanging takes a terrible turn and he accidentally hangs himself to death. And therefore, a will is read. The scheming relatives, including James Villiers and Coral Brown, realise that his son Jack, played by Peter O'Toole, will now become the 14th Earl of Gurney. So the film stars Peter O'Toole. Harry Andrews is briefly in it. I don't think that's necessarily spoilers, because his death gets the story going. Coral Brown, James Villiers, Arthur Lowe, Alistair Sim in a late role as the local bishop. Nigel Green has a wonderful turn. I'm not going to go into every detail, every nook and cranny of this film, because there's a lot for the viewer to enjoy. Yeah, let's say enjoy. On the first viewing, it's a film that's 153 minutes long, bizarrely. So it's a little over long, but for every scene that perhaps is a little frustrating or goes on a little bit too long, there is outright moments of straight up genius. So the crux of the matter is that Jack Gurney has been in a facility for quite some time because he believes that he's Jesus Christ. He believes that he's God. There's a wonderful scene as he is announced to the rest of the family, and it almost goes to Sergio Leone close-ups of their eyes before he makes an appearance. And of course he's completely off his chump. He kind of takes Arthur Lowe under his wing. Obviously his behaviour is not what is expected of an earl, and the family proceeds to get a psychiatrist or his psychiatrist to try and cure him, but very much like A Clockwork Orange, curing somebody of something generally leads to other things. And as Peter O'Toole goes through this curing process, he becomes almost inhabited by the ghost of Jack the Ripper. Yep, it's one of those films. I should probably mention that at several moments during the film, people burst into song, and there's musical numbers. There is one absolutely amazing musical number that I'm not going to spoil, which happens a bit later in the film. Obviously, the film is about being somewhat critical of the ruling class. Again, it's this constant thing of, you know, the lack of discipline and capital punishment going away is a bad thing. But obviously, as Peter O'Toole's character changes and becomes more of what an earl is supposed to be, you know, he ends up in the House of Lords spouting even more right-wing nonsense than Harry Andrews was spouting. It's one of those films that you might not like, but you will be amazed at certain scenes. Like I say, Nigel Green turns up as his the Peter O'Toole psychiatrist is trying to convince him that he's not actually God, he's not Jesus Christ, by bringing in Nigel Green, who also thinks that he's God. So there can't be two gods in the same, you know, taking up space in the same universe. well, that's a theological, that's an egnometical matter. But Nigel Green, he's the electric god, and he believes he's God, and he's got the power of electricity. So he's, I mean, it is an amazing scene, and it's just an amazing scene. Again, there's lots of things in this film that you just can't describe. You have to see it, whether you like it or not. You have to see it because it has moments of absolute genius. You know, I'll be honest, there's moments that are a little frustrating. There's moments that perhaps run a little too long. There's a whole subplot of the rest of his family kind of hire this showgirl to pretend to be his ex-amour, to try and get him to marry. Obviously they're trying to get his money, they're trying to kill him off. It's a stunningly daft film. Peter O'Toole is just wonderful in it. You know, I've often kind of said mistakenly that, you know, Peter O'Toole just wasn't in enough great films, but it's probably just because I haven't seen enough of his films. Obviously My Favourite Year is one of my personal favourites of his. You've got The Stuntman. Obviously Lawrence of Arabia is the one he's famous for. But The Ruling Class, if it doesn't come out on Blu-ray, which hopefully it will at some point, I'll maybe have to try and pick up the Criterion DVD. This Spanish DVD, the print's actually pretty good. It's not a bad print at all. It's just a strange film. You know, again, a great performance by O'Toole. It's a performance that, because it's probably based in a play, it's a performance that that's a part that all actors would probably want to play. There's lots of wonderful dialogue, there's lots of wonderful flowery speeches. But again, the musical numbers, which at first, because I think Arthur Lowe, the butler, has one of the first musical numbers, and you're kind of thrown by it. But then the way the rest of the film goes, it doesn't actually come as any surprise when they all start like bursting into song. But again, it's not long songs, it's just like 30 seconds or a couple of minutes, if that. It's just completely barking. It's got wonderful sets, lovely production design. There's a scene near the end in the House of Lords as Peter O'Toole's mental state might be a little bit fragile, that's very cleverly done and beautifully done. Again, great cast. You know, Arthur Lowe has actually left £30,000 in the will, whereas the rest of the family don't really get much. So he's obviously quite happy. And what happens to him is another story, which I'm not going to get into. I think it is a film that I'll be revisiting quite a bit. It's one of those films where you perhaps say, did I actually see that? Or did I dream it? Or was it somewhere in between? So again, your opinion of whether the film is successful or not is almost a moot point with a film like this. It shows once again, you know, the late 60s and 70s, you just couldn't make a film like this now. And even if it doesn't quite work, it's at least interesting and unusual and kind of swings for the fences. And, you know, sometimes it might not actually get there, but you have to give it credit for trying. Like I say, it's 153 minutes, and even though it's probably a little over long, it didn't seem like 153 minutes, just because the lunacy involved you kind of just get hooked because Peter O'Toole is just like so magnetic in it. Even as he changes throughout the film, his look and obviously his character, you're kind of hooked, and you have these just amazing scenes like the one with Nigel Green, where he's trying to convince him he's not God because he's the electric god, are quite incredible. It can be an exhausting film, but it's quite wonderful. It's kind of a wonderful, a wonderful oddity, but so much fun. And I've got a feeling that I'm going to be revisiting this film a lot, because again, like I said, there's just a lot of special moments in it. Again, Peter Medak is never going to be on the list of the greatest directors of all time. Again, he didn't make that many films. He made a shed load of TV. But this is a little strange gem. So thanks very much for watching this random review, which is probably a little bit too rambling, but then so's the film. And hopefully we'll see you again for more random reviews. Please leave comments if you've seen The Ruling Class and what you think of it. And hopefully we'll see you again for more videos. This is Soldier saying farewell and have a good evening.